Hi, everyone. I want to welcome all of you to the UC San Diego Division of Graduate Education and Postdoctoral Affairs virtual grad prep series. Today, we're going to have an opportunity to hear from some of our graduate programs. So we're excited to welcome all of our presenters today. Today, we're going to hear from Cognitive Science, Dr. Ethel Liu, who is a graduate advisor. We'll get an opportunity to hear from Data Sciences, Yvonne Wu, who's a Math Assistant Director and Program Manager. And then we'll have an opportunity to hear from Psychology, Janice Feng, who's our Graduate Coordinator. And my name is Angeline Yang. I am the Director of Outreach, Access, Recruitment, and Retention, OER Squared. So we're excited to jump right into our sessions. What we'll do is we'll have an opportunity to hear from our programs. We'll ask them a couple of questions. And then in the end, we'll have an opportunity for additional questions from the audience. So I am going to stop sharing my screen and I'm going to turn over to Dr. Liu.
Thank you, Angeline. Hi, everybody. I'm Ethel. And apologies, I'm not going to be sharing my screen, my video today because I'm feeling under the weather, but I'm happy to meet with you at another time as well. Because I talk to prospective students all the time. So if you find yourself interested in cognitive science down the road, feel free to send me an email and we can schedule a Zoom appointment. So let me share with you a little bit about our department. So cognitive science is the study of the brain and the mind. And what makes CogSci at UCSD special is that you'll see, like, when you do some research on our faculty, they really are from really very different disciplines. So some of them have like a background in psychology, some have a more neuroscience background, others are more computer science or even ECE or electrical computer engineering background. So I think having this kind of interdisciplinary approach really makes their work very innovative. And our students get to experience, and when they do lab rotations, they get to get a little bit of, training in each of these areas, and they get to figure out what they want to do along the way.
Well, I want to mention as well that you are not in presenter view in case you wanted that to be presenter view.
I'm sorry.
No
I
problem.
thought I shared. I'm sorry. Okay.
That's okay.
So here's some background on CogSci.
Hey, you're not sharing your screen now.
Am I sharing the screen?
Your screen is not being shared.
Oh no. Okay, sorry.
That's okay. So if you could put it on presenter view, then we'll only see the slide that you're trying to share. We could see your entire slide deck. So it wasn't nothing.
Okay, hold on. Share.
This if you had a preference for us to see presenter view.
Oh, got it. This one.
Yes, perfect.
Okay. Okay, and then from what I understand, the director of admissions has done a presentation with a group, and so some of this might be redundant, but a couple of things I want to highlight is that for CogSci, the GRE test requirement is being continued to be waived for the fall 23 admissions. I don't know, it's a temporary waiver, so that might change in the future. But if you are interested in applying in fall 23, our admissions committee will not even look at the GRE score. There's a minimum GPA of 3.0, but we've had some students who have been admitted with a waiver because they were really strong in other areas. So while their grades were, while their GPA was below 3.0, they showed a lot of potential and they had a lot of research experience that our faculty at least one of our faculty really vouched for them. A lot of this you can also find on our website, which I'll share with you really briefly at the end. So one of the first things you can do if you want to look into CogSci is to take a look at some of the work by our faculty. And, you know, as I mentioned, they come from various disciplines. So maybe think about like, okay, what area am I super interested in? Is it primarily like linguistics? Is it more like anthropology? Is it more neuroscience? And then read some of the articles and some of the work that the faculty have done in recent years, ideally before you reach out to them, so that you can then express, you know, why you're interested in their work and how it connects with what they have done or are currently doing. And here are some of the research labs that our faculty oversee. And again, as you can see, they really range from various disciplines. And we have postdocs, grad students, undergrads in these labs who you can also reach out to. So while, you know, it is important to reach out to the PI or the principal investigator, sometimes they're pretty busy and they don't always get to your email. So reaching out to one of their grad students or a postdoc, you know, that would also be beneficial. Part of it is because if you apply to CogSci and you are invited to an interview, you're going to get to talk to and meet these people in these various labs. So it's like you're already doing like some of like pre-work before that to kind of see, you know, would I fit in this lab? That's it for my slides. But the other part that I wanted to share with you all, and I don't know if this one has a presentation mode. I think I'll just zoom in. But some of the things I wanted to highlight when you are, you know, when you've committed to apply to CogSci is to start early. Our application portal typically opens early September and is due by early to mid-December. So you have about 3 months. One of the first things I recommend you do is to request that letter of recommendation early, or think about who can write you a good letter of recommendation, so you don't, you know, your letter writer isn't and give them as much information as possible too, so they can write you a good letter. And they're not scrambling last minute to get your letter in. Let's see. Strong research experience, contributions to research. So some of our applicants will show that they've been part of writing an article or a manuscript. So if you are, you know, volunteering at a lab, or if you are working in a lab, make sure you really advocate for yourself to, you know, be part of these, you know, publications and actively be involved in that, because that really stands out on your CV or resume. That's part of your application. And then our admissions committee also strongly considers students with leadership background, showing that you have drive and you know, that you have, you know, overcome obstacles, because grad school is a commitment. It's at least 6 years, and they want to see somebody who can, and you're gonna, you know, have obstacles, and it's not going to be easy. So they want to see somebody who will be up for that. And then, of course, finally, showing academic rigor and achievements. If you have any failing grades, for example, you want to indicate why that's the case in your personal statement or in your statement of purpose. So those are just my quick tips for the application. And then finally, here's our website. A couple of places I really encourage you to take a look at is under people. So faculty, postdocs, grads, and lab staff. And then also under graduates, you'll see our link to our program. We also offer a couple other programs. There's a joint doctoral program with SDSU, and there's an interdisciplinary PhD program. But mainly the bulk of our admits are with the CogSci PhD program. And that's it for me. If you have any questions, feel free to put it on the chat, or you can also ask at a later time.
Thank you so much, Dr. Liu. We really appreciate all of that information. We're going to go into our next speaker and give them an opportunity to share a screen. May we hear from data science, Yvonne Yu.
Can you see my screen and hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you excellent, and we can see you excellent as well.
Perfect. Okay, so hi everyone. My name is Yvonne Wu, and I am the Assistant Director and Program Manager for the Data Science and Engineering program. I'll just go straight into it. So some of you may be curious on what a Master's of Advanced Studies is. It's a little bit different than a traditional master's program. So for our program specifically, the Data Science and Engineering, it is a MAS program. It's still a master's degree. It's conferred by UC San Diego. I know a lot of questions that we get are, whether or not it's the same or equivalent, and it is. But it's just more, our programs are focused on working professionals. So our target audience are typically working professionals in the local San Diego area. So it's designed for engineers and technical professionals. We have a unique interdisciplinary degree program, which focuses on emerging technology and different fields that a traditional curricula may not address. What's also different about ours is we don't sit under one department. We're actually shared under the Computer Science and Engineering department, as well as the San Diego Supercomputer Center on campus. So we have faculty from both that come and teach for our program. So for the MAS degree programs, I manage the Data Science and Engineering, as well as our Wireless Embedded Systems program. And then we also have an architect-based enterprise systems engineering, which is managed by one of my teammates, and we have more programs in development. So I just kind of wanted to go over that a little bit so that you kind of know the difference between a master's degree and then a master's in advanced study. Another thing about our program is the way that it's structured. Our classes are actually every other Friday and Saturday. This allows for our working professionals to continue to work full time and then attend class every other weekend. So that's kind of a little bit unique of a schedule compared to other programs out there. So just an overview about the program. As I said, we sit under the Computer Science and Engineering program, as well as the Supercomputer Center. We have two faculty directors, Dr. Ilke Altintes. She is the Chief Data Science Officer at the San Diego Supercomputer Center, and then Aline Deutsch, who is a professor at the Computer Science and Engineering department. So as I mentioned, our target audience is typically engineering professionals with a background in computer science or other engineering or mathematics. But of course, we actually in this program have had a variety of students with different backgrounds. So it's not just focused with engineering. We've had, students from biology, finance, so it ranges. And as I mentioned, our classes are every other Friday and Saturday. Classes run all day, typically from about 9 until 5 p.m. And this program is a 2-year program. So it runs fall, winter, spring, the first year, and then fall, winter, spring, the second year, with a break in the summer. This is just a quick look of what the coursework looks like. You would have 2 classes pretty much every quarter, and our program ends with a capstone project. So what's great about our program is it's cohort based, and a lot of our students pair up and they get to know all of their cohorts and classmates throughout the 2 years, and they come together and do a group capstone project at the very end. They all come to an agreement on what kind of topic they want to do. And it's, again, ranged. We've had projects on different medical field topics. Dr. Altintas is big on wildfires, so we have a lot of projects that cover wildfires here in California. And then also, I remember one year we've actually had a group who created like a chat bot that would respond to you the way that Rachel from Friends would respond to you. So that was a really interesting kind of project that we hadn't seen. So as I said, the projects kind of vary, and it all depends on the group and what they want to work on. So that's great. And, they match you with a faculty advisor through the project. And it's just a fun thing to watch as someone, who's not into data science, but just seeing all the capstone projects at the end of the program has been great. So then moving on to admissions requirements. So typically we look for a bachelor's degree in engineering, science, physics, math. But again, as I mentioned, there's been a variety of different backgrounds that have come into our program. 3.0 minimum GPA. However, we have made exceptions for students who fall slightly below the 3.0. It all depends on your overall complete application, your experience, or maybe courses that you've taken. The admissions committee looks at all of that together, and if they think you're a great fit for the program and a good candidate and want to admit you, then me as a program manager, I will do what I can to see if we can get the GPA requirement waived if it's below the 3.0. A statement of purpose, of course, I get a lot of questions on the length of the statement of purpose. Typically I see about a page or so, but again, the main purpose of the statement is just to put in your own words why you would love to be a part of our program. We do require 2 letters of recommendation, but 3 is preferred. We also like to look at your resume, if you have one, just to see, what you've done in the past few years, if you've been out of school or if you're straight from school, maybe projects you've done in class, those sorts of things. And then we do prefer 2 years of relative work experience or relevant work experience, but it's not a requirement. What we really look at, or what the admissions committee really looks at, is kind of your background. If you have any data science experience at all. Some additional requirements they look at are any programming experiences with different databases, experience with data analysis in an application domain. If you have at least 2 out of 3 of these, that's great. If you also have a great math foundation with linear algebra and probability and statistics, as well as experience with distributed systems, then that's also a plus as well on your application. What is unique about our application is that there are 6 additional questions that are asked on the application that specifically ask you about your experience in programming and databases and your math foundation. So what I typically tell prospective students is, look at these questions, see if you can answer them. If you can answer most of them comfortably, then we encourage you to apply. If you are struggling on some of them, then that kind of shows you the kind of knowledge or skills you may want to gain before applying to the program. Again, these are not, required, or there are additional requirements that the admissions committee looks at, but it's not, black and white where it's like, if you have these, great, you'll be admitted. If you don't have them, you're not going to be admitted. That's not the case. It all depends, of course, case by case and your whole complete application and your background as well. But the admissions committee pretty much just looks at, overall, do they think you're going to be successful in this program? Do you have the right, experience? If you're lacking in something, are you going to be able to catch up, with the other cohorts and be able to contribute and be successful in the program? So there's a lot of different things that they look at. And that, I believe, concludes my presentation.
Thank you so much, Yvonne. We really appreciate your resources and really appreciate having an opportunity to ask you some additional questions as well during our panel. All right. So we are going to ask for psychology, Janice Feng, to give their presentation.
Sounds great. Hello, everyone. As Angeline said, my name is Janice Feng. I'm going to be talking about the Department of Psychology, but I will do it using our website instead of slides. Can everyone see my screen okay?
Yes, it's excellent.
Wonderful. Okay, so the Department of Psychology, I manage the PhD program. We do not have a terminal master's program, but if you enroll in our PhD program, you can earn a master's along the way if you do not already have a master's. Just walking through our website a little bit, we have an undergraduate program with a lot of different majors, graduate program. So the first place we'll go is a graduate program. There is a nice history and overview of our program, how we started. And as you go into it, we have different pages for prospective and current students as well as alumni. So prospective students is where you would mostly want to spend your time looking through our just, information to learn about the PhD program in experimental psychology. So since I brought up experimental psychology, I'm going to first go to our FAQ section. And that is where I encourage everyone to take a look first, mostly because we have a lot of questions here that are very commonly asked. So do you have a master's program? We do not have a terminal master's program, but you can earn one. What is experimental psychology? There's a link for you to find out more information about that. Essentially, experimental psychology is the study of what influences the way humans or animals behave, things like sensation, perception, cognition, attention, things like that. And what that does not include is it does not include a focus on clinical psychology. And so I think often that is a misconception because we're the Department of Psychology that we would cover that. There is a joint doctoral program for clinical psychology between San Diego State University and UC San Diego, but with the Department of Psychiatry. So, a link to find out more information. I'll cover a little bit more about details of, application, common questions and things like that. But I wanted to jump first back into our prospective students page. And it covers a little bit of, just right from the start, that our program is fully funded for 5 years, if not more. But that a main point there is that our program is department funded and not PI or lab funded. So, in the case that your PI or faculty advisor leaves the department, you would still be promised funding through our department. Talks a little bit about the campus-wide community or our department community, holistic review in admissions. And then I'll say, just to let you all know that our department has 5 main focuses in terms of research area. So cognitive and behavioral neuroscience, cognitive psychology, developmental psychology, sensation and perception, and social psychology. And if you are interested in any of those, you could go into our research areas, and then our faculty are broken up by, which research area that they specialize in. You'll notice as you go through our website that we'll have different faculty pop up on different research areas. And the main reason for that is that an emphasis that we like to make is that between these research areas, there's a lot of collaboration. So faculty belong to perhaps multiple research areas. Our grad students will work across different research areas. Some people will be co-advised by someone in one research area and another. And I think that represents a little bit about what UCSD's like emphasis on doctoral programs is this cross collaboration between departments, between research areas. For example, for your doctoral committee, UCSD requires you to have an outside of department committee member. And so there's just this really big emphasis in the university across departments about just, cross collaboration. And so if you're interested in learning more about a specific faculty member, you can click on their name. So Stefan here, and then he'll have a link to his lab, to his personal website. So there's basically, you can learn a lot about what each faculty member is involved in, and similarly, thus, grads and that the grads are involved in too. And so back to our prospective PhD student page. So we talked a little bit about the research areas, and then I wanted to talk a little bit about curriculum. And so within those research areas, we have a lot of coursework. You're not tied just because your main advisor is the social psychology doesn't mean you can only take classes in social psychology. We have a lot of classes. Let's see, I'll go through the current students in psychology, current course offerings, and just give you a sense of a little bit of, we have pro seminars that students are required to take as part of the program. And that is where you sort of get your general information of these like different research areas. And then you have seminars that are more specific in terms of different just topics that you're interested in. And so all of our students are required to take 4 pro seminars and 4 seminars. Most of your coursework is completed in your first 2 years, if not your 3 years of your program. And then most of our students take about 5-6 years to complete their dissertation total, that is. And so for your second, for the second half of your program time here in the department, you'd be working on your dissertation. Let's see, if we wanted to talk a little bit about admissions, there are the eligibility requirements that are on here. And so UCSD has a minimum of a GPA of 3.0 for doctoral students. We don't have a minimum GPA for our program or a minimum GRE. The GRE is optional for this upcoming year, so you are more than welcome to include it, but it is not required. One of the reasons why you might want to include it is if you think there something in your CV or your background maybe falls short a little bit. For example, you are really interested in doing research that involves a lot of advanced statistics, but you haven't taken a lot of advanced statistics. So your quant score for your GRE might be, a really good balance for that. But again, it is optional. And so what we like to say is that we have a holistic review of your application requirements. And so we'll take into account your previous research experience, your stats background, your GPA, your GRE, things like that. All of that is as important as the others. A big thing about our program is that we are a little bit of like an apprentice structured way thing. So you would apply with a few different PIs in mind. So here it says indicate up to 3 faculty mentors of interest, and you would essentially tailor your application to focus on those PIs and like the type of research you want to do. And so that's why it's really helpful for you to explore our website and explore the different research areas, the different faculty members, look at their labs, get a sense of the people that are in their labs so that you have a sense of if your background fits, the requirements of that lab. But by applying to our program, you essentially select which advisors you're interested in working with, because again, you work very closely with your advisor, who usually becomes then your committee chair. I think my time is up already, but I have a lot more to share. In the case that anyone is interested, feel free to ask me questions. Happy to chat more about our PhD in experimental psychology program.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Janice. What we're going to do now is we are going to go into an opportunity to ask all of our panelists questions. And I'm going to start to highlight all of you so that we can see the panelists. 1 second. And as I'm pinning everybody to the panel, I want to ask the first question so that we can start to talk about that. So if you could give prospective applicants just one piece of advice for applying to your program, what would it be?
I guess I can start. For me, it would be those questions that I mentioned in the application, the 6 additional questions. They're also posted on our website. I would just have prospective students take a look at the questions, see how they would answer them. And again, like I said, it would kind of give them a good idea on whether they would be a good fit or not. And for anybody who's hesitant to apply, I would just say, you know, to apply anyways. It doesn't hurt. You know, we provide feedback to the applicants who may not get admitted for, you know, the upcoming academic year, but we could provide good feedback that'll help you if you want to reapply next year.
I'm happy to go next. One of the main reasons why I wanted to present by going through our website is because there's so much information on our website. So my biggest recommendation, it's a little bit of a cheat, is for you all, if you're interested in our program, to honestly just look through our website as thoroughly as possible, because that is the main resource that even our current graduate students use. If you go into the current graduates or current students page, you'll see anything from financial support to coursework that they're required to do and when to do it. And so there's just so much information that it really helps you get to see if our program is a good fit for you. And then also how then you can tailor your application to be competitive for the program. So as I mentioned, you can see, you know, our different faculty, and then you can see which grad students are advised by which faculty members, and you can, you know, look into everyone's background. You can do all, basically you can learn about their lab before you even join it. And so that way you have a sense of, you know, does, again, your background meet this lab's requirements or just qualifications, you know, basically getting a sense of, again, is this a good program for you? Are you a good fit for the program?
I think I would also, I echo Janice's advice in trying to see, you know, picture yourself in that lab, or picture yourself working with that particular advisor. And a lot of times, yeah, you might, you know, their work might interest you, but then maybe it's not the best fit in terms of, you know, how that PI typically mentors their student. And a lot of that you don't really get a sense of until you actually interact with them. And so, you know, when you reach out to like a grad student or a postdoc or to the faculty, you know, prepare some questions that give you a sense of, you know, not only what their expectations are, but, you know, give you a sense of what, you know, what kind of mentor they will be, and if that works for you as well.
Thank you so much, Ethel. Our next question is, how important is previous research experience, and how should applicants best signal or highlight their previous experience when applying?
I think in the CV or resume. So that's one of the requirements for the CogSci application. And then on your statement of purpose, one of the things I've seen is like certain phrases, like put it in bold, you know, because you know, our faculty are reading so many applications. We get about 300 each year. And out of that, about 45 get invited to interview. And then out of that, about 25 or so are admitted to the program. And so, you know, as best as you can to help them, you know, identify your strengths in, you know, in your submitted information, the better. Of course, they're gonna, you know, look at GPA. Of course, they're gonna, you know, your letters of rec too. Like, I can't stress that enough. Like, faculty really, they value their colleagues' opinion, right? And so that's one of the best ways they can gauge you as a future, you know, advisee and as a future scholar and researcher, is to see what have their colleagues said about you.
Yeah, I'll follow up with Ethel because we're very similar in our the Department of Psychology. Research experience is required, but it's, you know, sometimes students will send me questions and say, I have 2 years of research, is that enough? It's less about the amount of time you've done research and it's the quality and the type of research you've done. Just as Ethel mentioned, you know, our faculty really place an emphasis on, you know, what their colleagues think. And so if you are applying to work with a specific faculty member doing specific research, and you have just a little bit of experience doing that exact thing, that's going to be more promising in some ways than, you know, if you've done a lot of research, but it's in a completely different field with different preparation and things like that. And so that's why I recommended you look at each faculty member and see which person you're interested in. And then that way you can figure out if your research experience aligns, how it aligns with that faculty member. And as Ethel mentioned, make sure you include it in your CV, make sure you include it in your application responses. You know, you don't necessarily have to take verbatim quotes from the faculty member's lab, but, you know, if you are, you know, interested in social cognition, for example, and you've done work in that, mention that, be as specific as possible. And where you think your application might fall short, if your letter of recommenders, your recommendation letters can sort of, you know, speak to that. If you know, you can't necessarily say you're an expert in something, but if, you know, someone in that field mentions that you are really talented in a specific type of research or that you've spent a lot of time, then that's going to be hugely important. So again, research experience is required, but really how much the research fits what you're looking to do for your dissertation, for your, you know, doctoral program, that's going to be the most important thing.
So unfortunately, our DSC program doesn't really have a research component in it. It's mainly, you know, the projects and then the capstone at the end of the program. But if you've done anything data science related prior to applying, I definitely encourage you to, you know, include that in any way possible when you answer the 6 additional questions, or, you know, in your statement of purpose, as well as also on your resume. You know, a lot of our applicants have a section for projects and different, you know, things that they've worked on in the past. So I would definitely encourage you to put it all in those different areas on the application.
Thank you so much, Yvonne. Our next question is, how can applicants connect with current graduate students in your program to learn about your department?
So the past couple of years, CogSci has done a grad preview day. This is usually like around, let's see, like a little bit after the applications open, like early October. And so that's a time our faculty have been really good about attending those. So they're there, and then we also have grad students. So that's one way, but you don't even have to wait until, you know, the grad preview day. You can simply, you know, email them They get a lot of emails too, but you know, our grad students in Cog Sci, they're very, you know, they help with open house and things like that. And I know that they're also very interested to see who their future peers are going to be, and to be able to give you some feedback on their own experiences. So I would say reach out to them through email, and then attend any of our sessions that we offer right around admission season.
One of the pages that for psychology that I didn't show you. So when you look at the people, you know, it's organized by faculty members, postdocs, researchers, things like that. There's also a graduate page. And so all of our graduate students have photos. Well, not all of them submitted photos, but their email addresses, and you're more than welcome to contact them. If you're curious about who might be more willing or interested to talk to you, if you look at our current student page, there's a grad officer page within that. And so those are different graduate students in our department who have taken a leadership role. You know, maybe they're in charge of outreach, they're in charge of extramural funding, in charge of different things like that. And you could get a sense, usually if they sign up or they're elected for one of those positions, they're a little bit more involved. But Ethel mentioned this earlier in that, and this is a recommendation that I would give to you all if you were considering reaching out to faculty members or graduate students, is to make sure that you come up with some thoughtful questions. And that's even with staff members here, I imagine. You know, we get so many emails during this period, and it's very clear usually if someone has taken a look at our website, done any research whatsoever. And so instead of asking a very basic question, if you look at a graduate student's page, or you look at the lab that they're a part of, and you have come up with a very thoughtful, specific question, it's so much more likely that they'll pay attention to your email and be interested in talking to you. And they'll know that you're then serious about the program and about research and about talking to them, and you didn't just choose their name because they looked friendly. But you know, if you chose their name because you have an interest in their specific research that they're doing, and then you have questions about the lab or the faculty member or their experience, it really just shows that you've taken some time to think about why you're interested in speaking with them, and it will make it so much more likely that you'll have a really good conversation with them. But again, each of our current graduate students is listed on our website, and their email address is linked to that.
For me, if you want to contact any of our current students or alumni, you would reach out directly to me, and I would be happy to connect you. Typically, when people reach out and want to get connected, I try to find someone who has similar background, or maybe if you're employed in a local company, I try to connect you with someone who's also employed at that same company. So I try to connect people based on interest, background, and that sort of thing. So yeah, definitely do not hesitate to reach out to me if you'd like to connect with any of our students.
Thank you so much, everyone. So what we're going to do is we're going to open up our questions now to the students who've been asking questions in the chat. So one of the questions that we have is, can you get an MD, PhD in cognitive and behavioral neuroscience? Is the application process similar to just applying for the PhD program?
So it's a little bit different. We don't usually get those, but you apply to the MD program, and I believe the PhD is along the way of the MD. So if you are interested in that, reach out to me separately, and I'll take a look at the details. But from what I remember, you applied to the MD first, and then you submit like a subset of that application to departments. It's not just Cog Sci, like it could be other departments on campus too, with PhD programs. And then you would have to be accepted in both. And then you do our curriculum in like after your first or second year in the MD program, something like that. So please reach out separately.
Thank you so much, Ethel. Another question that we have is, hi, Janice. Is Dr. Winkleman the best faculty to apprentice with if we're interested in social cognition and human communication?
Yeah, I'll take that. For Corinne, I don't want to be the one to tell you who is the best faculty member for you to work with. As I mentioned, they have all of our faculty, including PIOT, has a lab page, lab website that talks about the type of research they're interested in. Some things that you might want to consider are, very specific research. What is your background in, how much it relates to PO or, the grads or the postdocs in the lab and the research that they do. But then you also might want to talk to some of the grads about the Dr. Winkleman's or PIOT's like sort of advising style. That's as important sometimes as like the very specific research. PIOT does a lot of collaboration work with different faculty members. And so if you're more interested in social cognition versus human communication, that we have different faculty members who focus on both. And again, I think a little bit of it just depends on what work you're interested in and who do you think would be best in advising you for that. So there's not necessarily the best faculty member, but we have PIOT would be one of the ones that is, that does fall into that realm, but I would take a look at his lab page and see if the type of research that him or different people in his lab are working on suit sort of, what you're interested in doing.
Thank you so much, Janice. Another question that we have is, how does each program support their undocumented / Daca students?
I'm not quite sure what do you mean by support, like in terms of, we certainly have a office on campus for undocumented students. And so if a student reaches, if one of our students happens to be undocumented and, I can certainly connect them with that office. They would be granted the same, funding support as any other students. Yeah, I'm not quite sure, like, is it like financial support or community support? Can you say a little bit more about that?
And as we wait for a clarifying question in our Q&A, if there is one, I think Dr. Betty Ramirez might have some comments about the kinds of support that DACA students and undocumented students receive.
Oh, actually, I was only going to try to clarify. I think that probably the concern would be more if to reframe the question would be, would DACA or undocumented students receive the same type of support, funding support from a PhD program, or would that be a different process? Because I think DACA students and undocumented students go through a different process as undergraduates. So I was just wondering, I think that's might be what the question is trying to get at, is how are DACA and undocumented students funded at the graduate level, if they are able to be funded at the graduate level, or if their status might be a barrier to them being able to be accepted in the program.
So to my knowledge, they should not have that barrier. Our students are supported a couple of different ways: employment as a TA or as a graduate student researcher, so campus employment, or with a stipend, which is kind of like, an award, like fellowship money. And I'm not 100% sure, but I don't think DACA students are prevented from receiving either of those funds as graduate students. Yeah.
I think the big difference is if someone has DACA versus their undocumented students and don't have the ability to work. And so for those that, do have DACA, that they have a work permit, then they would receive the same type of funding that any of our students would receive. Our department, even though it says it's fully funded, that's mostly through TA-ship opportunities where students serve as teaching assistants, or they are associate in lieu is what we call them. So they're basically mentoring other students in our department. And so as long as you have the ability to work, DACA students, that's fine, that you have the same opportunities as all the other grad students and you would be fully funded. I think there's more information for UCSD wide about the support that they have for undocumented students who aren't able to work. Unfortunately, our program is structured in a way where it's you get full funding through employment opportunities. And so if you're unable to work, then it's not to say that you wouldn't be accepted into a program, but that our funding support would be quite a bit different for you.
So for DSE, of course, it's again different. Our program is actually self-supported, so we don't offer any funding. Most of our students, as I mentioned, are working professionals, so they do get sponsored by their employer. Almost a good majority of them get some kind of reimbursement or support in some way. But I also did want to mention that there are other more traditional master's programs for data science on campus that students can look into. There's a machine learning and data science program, graduate program through the electrical and computer engineering program department. And then the Rady School of Management has a business analytics program, both part-time and full-time. And then I know HDSI is also developing new data science graduate programs as well. They have like an online data science program that I believe is starting soon. And then I think they're also developing a more traditional one. So data science has definitely become more popular lately. And so there's a lot of new programs popping up. So our program is a little bit unique from other traditional programs. So it is self-supporting, but most of our students again, are working professionals and their employer sponsor, but our students are still eligible for financial aid and as well through the university or FAFSA, but those are pretty much where they get their funding for the program.
I also just wanted to add a quick clarifying note in that students would, undocumented students, DACA students would still receive some partial funding from our department. But essentially UCSD has this student employment agreement where, if you work for UTA or you're doing a certain position, so usually a teaching assistant for more than 25%, what they say 25% in a quarter, then you receive tuition and fee remission. And that is sort of the primary benefit of students when they're working. So for our department, you are guaranteed TA-ships and employment in order to receive this remission for at least 5 years on the program. We've luckily been able to do that for students up through their 6 years. And so that's where primarily our students are supported, is that they are offered TA positions through our department, and thus through the university, they receive tuition and fee remission. So the students who are unable to work would still receive some financial support from our department, but a key part of that financial support for other students is through TA-ships.
Thank you so much for some of those thoughtful responses to some more questions. Can we also ask if there are any information that you could recommend to be competitive for additional fellowships, and then fellowships that you might want to recommend and highlight to students to apply to?
For psychology, we have a page on the current student page where there's actually a list of our most commonly applied extramural funds. And so that's why I was recommending everyone to take a look at the prospective and the current student page. There's a lot of information in there, but we have a whole list of fellowships that we encourage our students to apply to. We also have an extramural officer, a grad officer who's in charge of sort of helping our students apply for these different grants and fellowships. And then generally through the admissions process, there are various fellowships that UCSD offers that we, like work with our faculty to nominate prospective students for too. But we have a list of commonly applied for extramural funds on our website.
The division or the School of Social Sciences, which psychology and CogSci are part of, offers some fellowship opportunities to incoming students. And one of the ways I think grad division will keep the additional educational experiences section on Slate, right? I mean, I'm not sure, but usually there's an opportunity for applicants to talk about additional educational experiences on the application. And so I encourage you to fill out that, submit answers to those questions, because that's one of the ways that our faculty can better identify who we would, nominate for these fellowships for incoming students. And a lot of the fellowship funding too that happens for our students isn't at the time of, when you first come in. Instead, it happens in your second, third, or fourth year with some of our partner research units. So, if you are admitted to our program and your first year, second year students, you want to talk to some of our other grad students who've received these awards from research units on campus, because then they can tell you how they were able to successfully submit an application to those research units on campus.
I've also posted a list of some fellowship opportunities in the chat. So Cornell, UCLA Grapes, Sally Mae, Científico Latino, and Immigrants Risings, there's some links in here that talks about different types of fellowships that folks can learn about and apply to as well. We also received a question about how does employment work? At what point are the tuition and fees connected to employment, and how many hours are graduate students typically employed for, and those kinds of questions on employment. Does anybody want to elaborate on that?
Sure, I can start, and then maybe Janice or Yvonne can chime in if there's anything I've missed. But typically our TAs work 20 hours a week. And that's considered a 50% teaching assistantship. A TA serves kind of to assist the instructor of the course with leading discussion sections, grading papers, things like that. In addition to that, if you have, as Janice mentioned, at least 25% appointment as a TA or as a researcher, then campus will essentially waive your tuition. I mean, there's some other details involving that, but essentially your tuition is covered. So that's why it's really important to think about like how you would balance, being employed, like a 20-hour-a-week job with, getting through your courses and, still getting your research work done. I mean, it's a lot to manage as a grad student, but that's essentially what it entails, what employment entails. And if, you are fortunate enough to have fellowship, sometimes grad students will opt to buy out a quarter, meaning they'll use that fellowship money to pay themselves for a quarter so that they don't have to work 20 hours a week.
Yeah, just to add on with Ethel, not that she missed anything. Grad students have the opportunity to teach once they've advanced to candidacy. And so that's only if you're interested, but we've had a number of our grad students who, serve as a lecturer for a course. And so you get a little bit more funding from that than you would as a teaching assistantship. And then also you have opportunities to possibly work over the summer. It depends on your PI or your lab or different faculty members. And so you could serve as a graduate student researcher or GSR during the summer as well. But that is not a guaranteed position. That really is up to if the lab that you have has funds and wants to hire you on as a GSR. But we have TA-ship opportunities during the academic year as well as the summer. Obviously, the summer you're not taking classes, so there isn't the tuition and fee remission. But that is an important thing for you all to consider when you look at your different programs, because not all programs guarantee TA-ships for a certain amount. And so, for example, psychology department hires a lot of out-of-department TAs as well, because not all programs guarantee, again, TA-ship employment.
So of course, our program's different. Unfortunately, because it's self-supporting, our students aren't eligible for teaching assistant positions or graduate assistant positions. They are eligible if they want to apply for any staff positions on campus. But again, most of our students are working professionals, also already working in local companies in the San Diego area. So because of that, they're working full-time, a normal 8 to 5 job, Monday through Friday. And then we have classes scheduled around that so that they can both work full-time and then also attend class part-time.
So with that, I want to thank our presenters here today, our departments, for talking about your graduate programs. It was really informative to also hear and see your websites and see what kinds of resources are on the website. You can really see that, the faculty, the research that they're doing, the kinds of resources that your programs have are it's a robust information on your website. So we highly recommend that as students are thinking about graduate school, they'll notice sometimes that there are, grad student info sessions that happen in the fall. UC San Diego does do an open house a virtual open house in the fall. So there are a number of opportunities as you're preparing for grad school and learning about the different programs and faculty that you can utilize to prepare for your graduate school applications. So we're extremely grateful to our program representatives today. We're extremely grateful for our students who are thinking about graduate school. We hope that you'll consider UC San Diego as one of your many options, and we look forward to your applications. So with that, we want to thank all of you for being here today and have a wonderful day. Thank you so much, everybody.